Welcome back to the IBFP. Here's your host, Foxy New.
Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back, fanboys. Be advised, this video contains the absolute truth, may cause hurt feelings, and the needs to thumb down the video. Let's just be honest and objective about it. Canelo Alvarez beats everyone from 160 to 168. Let's just be honest and unbiased. Who would you favor out of those two divisions over him to beat him? No one. Look, let's just break it down honestly and objectively. When you look at Jamaal Charles is a big middleweight, a strong guy, got some nice pop. He's right there in the prime of his career. But the problem with Jamaal Charles is that he lacks skills. He doesn't have enough skills to compete with Canelo Alvarez as an elite level. Those skills were full on display that he did have against a guy like Matt Korobov, and a lot of people contest that fight and feel that Matt Korobov got the better of him and simply didn't get the nod. Let's just be honest and unbiased. Jamaal Charles is a good fighter, not a great one, not an elite one. He simply lacks the skills to compete with Canelo Alvarez. In other words, he would probably be a tune-up fight for Canelo Alvarez. Let's just keep it going. Then you look at a guy like Demetrius Andrade, and Demetrius Andrade has a lot of different skills, so you can respect that about Demetrius Andrade. He has some speed as well. But the problem with Demetrius Andrade is that he'll get hit at some point, and his chin is very, very suspect at the elite level. He's never been tested, in all of his fights. And when he fought Ivanis Monterosian, one of the biggest punchers he's ever faced, who's not elite himself, dropped Demetrius Andrade flush, couldn't put him away. So I'm going to just be honest and unbiased about it. How do we know he can take those shots from Canelo Alvarez? This is a guy that was wobbled by Walter Coxindankwa. This is a guy that went life and death with Jack Colclay. So at the end of the day, Demetrius Andrade is a very good fighter, an interesting fighter, has an unorthodox, unique style to him, but at the same time, his chin is very suspect, and we don't know if he can hold up to those shots against Canelo Alvarez. And then look, let's just keep it going. When you look at and round out the rest of the 160-pound division, you look at guys like Triple G and Sergey Devrientchenko, and both of those guys are good, strong, quality fighters, but at this point, I don't think either one of those guys can put up much resistance against Canelo. Canelo's an elite level counter puncher, and both of those guys' defense is not superb, not elite. Both of those guys get hit way too much. Both of them are quality fighters, both of them are elite fighters, and both of them can give you all kinds of problem and have lots of power. So I have no problem with that. The only problem with these guys is their defense isn't on par as the level of Canelo. He's going to make these guys miss. He's going to frustrate them, and he's going to counter both of these guys all night long. But let's just keep it going. And then we move to 168 pounds. And when you move to 168 pounds, you start off with the WBO champion and a Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe Saunders is a very talented fighter. He has a lot of different skills, and he can be elusive at times. The problem with Billy Joe Saunders is that, he lost rounds against mediocre competition. And, that's just unacceptable. You don't lose rounds against mediocre competition. You don't look bad and get hit all over your body by mediocre competition. He's also never faced anyone with Canelo Alvarez's versatility or skill set. Think about it like this. His best fights were against limited fighters. Who are those limited fighters? David Lemieux and Chris Eubank. So if Canelo Alvarez's best two fights were against David Lemieux and Chris Eubank, we wouldn't know any of his flaws because, he would have probably just blew those guys away and stopped them both. So, at the end of the day, you can't tell a fighter's flaws. If your best opponent is David Lemieux and Chris Eubank, I know a lot of people say Billy Joe Saunders, when he gets up for a fight, he's a problem. And I agree. Billy Joe Saunders is a problem. He has a very good and challenging style, but the problem is his best two fights are David Lemieux and Chris Eubank. Canelo Alvarez is levels above these guys. Let's just be honest and unbiased. He will be too much for Billy Joe Saunders on those grounds. And then you look at a guy like Callum Smith. Now, Callum Smith, he's an interesting case. Callum Smith clearly lost his fight to John Ryder in his last fight. His defense and offense are tailor-made to get countered by Canelo Alvarez. He's wide open for Canelo Alvarez's body attack. And basically, to put it simply, I think Canelo Alvarez would turn Callum Smith into Rocky Fielding. Let's keep it going. And then you see a guy like Caleb Sweethand's Plant. Caleb Sweethand Plant is a good fighter, has a lot of potential. He's a hard worker, but you got to also look at it like this. Caleb Plant's hardest fight was against a one-dimensional Jose Uzcategui. You know, he took a few good shots from Jose Uzcategui. You could tell they kind of affected him to some degree, and he even gassed at points in that fight. He also lacks power to keep Canelo off of him. He has no elite skills per se. He has good speed, he has good power, good IQ, but none of them are elite to keep Canelo at bay or to give him an extremely difficult fight. He also lacks big fight experience. So, you know, I would have to favor Canelo over Caleb Sweethand Plant just as well. And then you get to David Benavidez. David Benavidez is one of the most dangerous fighters there is. David Benavidez is huge, he's strong, he's powerful, and he has a good chin, he has a good come forward style. He is going to be a problem for years to come. The problem with David Benavidez, he's dangerous but inexperienced. His inexperience is going to play a role. He's going to get countered by Canelo, and he's also wide open for Canelo Alvarez's body attack, a body attack that will wear you down, and you know, that ultimately led to the demise of a light heavyweight in Sergey Kovalev. At the end of the day, you know, I see Canelo Alvarez walking, you know, a guy like David Benavidez into a lot of shots that he doesn't see coming simply from inexperience. But once again, unbiased as always, is the IBFP.